Hello, Tiger Cubs. Yanni here. We're just 3.5 weeks out from summer, and I'm sure you'll all be excited about that. Textbook returns start this Monday, the 10th, so listen to your science teachers for details on how that will work. 8th graders, stay tuned about the promotion on June 1st. Before we get into our regular segments, Benjamin spoke to our principal, Miss Busick, about SPMS being selected as California Distinguished School and what that means to her after coming aboard during such a crazy year. Here's Benjamin.
SPMS was recently honored by the California District of Education as a distinguished school.
We are one of the top schools in all of California. The Distinguished School Program alternates between elementary schools and then middle school and high school every 2 years. So this is the first year in 2 years we've been eligible to be considered, and we met the criteria and got the distinction.
Criteria for this recognition includes grades, test scores, attendance rates, suspension rates, and closing the achievement gap.
We also are accountable for closing the achievement gap for kids who, let's say maybe they're not A students, but maybe they're D students, and then next year they're a C student. Like, we get credit for moving kids who are not passing into passing grades.
This is a major accomplishment for our school.
Personally, it validates how hard the students and the teachers at South Pass Middle School work. It's one thing to have really great test scores, but I think having this emblem on our school, being able to put California Distinguished School on our letterhead, reminds people that kids worked really hard and teachers did a really good job teaching and monitoring progress in order for us to be in this basically elite group of schools, right? That have, met this criteria to be deemed better than just normal schools.
As we head into the final stretch of the school year, it's important to keep working hard and finish strong.
All of us need to work on our personal best, whatever that is for each of us as individual. We need to work on our personal best, and we need to be proud of that. Finish strong, I think, is really important.
Great job, Tiger Cubs, on this impressive accomplishment. Here are Principal Busick's final thoughts.
This was a reminder that even though it was a really super crazy year and we were mostly in Zoom school, we still, achieved goals and met our accomplishments, which is important.
Great job, SPMS. Now, I've got the third installment of Tech Talks for you. Enjoy! Welcome to episode number 3 of Tech Talks. Today we're going to be talking about the world of graphic design. What is graphic design? Well, graphic design is the craft where professionals create visual content to communicate messages by applying visual hierarchy and page layout techniques. To sum that up, graphic design is the art of creating something to look good in order to show a message or display a feeling. Graphic design can be used in many different ways. If you take what we learned last week with coding, you can make a website. If you combine all our previous episodes together, you can make a game. But graphic design goes further than that. We see and use graphic design every day. If you're watching this on YouTube, take a look at the YouTube logo. It looks simple, but a graphic designer made it and got paid for it. Furthermore, look anywhere in your browser. Everything is a graphic design, one way or another. Even the symbols and logos to the backgrounds and spreadsheets need graphic designing, which is why it's nice to practice. You can get started today by opening Google Drawings and plop down a few shapes, because at the structure of any graphic design is shapes. So if you're doing it for a project or you're doing it for fun, this skill is useful for anyone. This week, rather than showing you the skate park or a move, Johnny talks about his own board. Let's see how that went.
I just have a plain whiteboard laying around the house, and I thought, what would be a better way to do a segment than designing the board? I started off by coloring the board white, and the design I wanted to do was to make a skull riding a skateboard. I had already drawn a skull on the board from the last drawing I did, so I decided to keep it. I started off by drawing a shirt on the skeleton with a pencil. I then began drawing his arms. Now it was time to add the skateboard at the bottom of the skeleton. Of course, the skateboard needed some kind of designs on it, so I decided to put a bunch of animated characters around the board. I didn't want to leave the shirt plain, so I decided to make a character in the center of it. Once I was done with the sketch, I had to go in with the Sharpie and make the lines darker. Here is the finished product.
For the past few weeks, Miles and Maya have had some warnings and information for you in the form of PSAs about wildfires and water shortages. Miles takes a look at plastic recyclability.
America is deep in a plastic waste problem that has been going on for several decades now. America is the largest plastic waste producer per capita across the globe. On top of this, America's recycling systems are struggling and are not able to repurpose most of the waste. There are three main ways that we can do our part in fixing this problem. Fixing this problem starts with reducing plastic usage. Try to stay away from single-use plastic materials you don't need, such as plastic spoons and forks. You should also be reusing plastic materials whenever possible. Reusing or repurposing plastic waste keeps it out of landfills and gives it another purpose. An example is turning plastic cup from an applesauce into a pot for a small plant. If you can't do that, then you should probably recycle it. Recycling gives the plastic another use instead of sending it to a landfill. However, you should only be recycling plastics that can be recycled. Recycling plants are struggling because items that shouldn't be recycled are being sent to these facilities, such as Pringles, cans, or animal products. You can check your local recycling center for a list of what's recyclable in your area. If we all do our part, we can help reduce plastics out of landfills and oceans.
In science news, Aiden and Jack have a fun new archaeological find to talk about. After that is the second to last installment in the Digital Citizen series.
Recently, the first ever pregnant mummy was discovered. The mummy was thought to be a priest on its discovery in 1826, but in 2015, a team of Polish scientists started looking further into the mummy. Upon inspection of the mummy, an anthropologist saw something out of the ordinary in the pelvis of the mummy. This anomaly was later found to be the leg of a fetus, and the fetus is predicted to have been between 26 to 30 weeks old. Scientists hope this find can lead us to more information about how ancient Egyptians treated their kids and what they believed the afterlife was for infants.
Hello, Tiger Cubs. This is Lawrence from Tiger Cub News. Over the past weeks, we have been reviewing digital citizenship with explanations to what they are. We will be reviewing digital rights and responsibility and digital wellness this week. For those that are not familiar with what digital citizenship is your identity on the internet. This does not include your accounts on social media, including Facebook, Google, Snapchat, etc. It is your status on the internet no matter how often you go on it, and it is what you do on the internet. Digital rights and responsibility. Digital rights and responsibility is basically our privilege that we have free access to the internet. It is something everyone has on the internet, and it is our responsibility to not have that privilege taken away by being responsible. Next up, digital health and wellness. Digital health and wellness is primarily our mental health. Having digital health and wellness is a good thing to keep at a good level as always, because it's something that won't really affect your life physically, but more mentally. That's it for this week. Last episode of Digital Citizenship next week.
Sophia is back to politics this week. Let's see what she's dug up.
Welcome back to this week's edition of Political Corner. I'm Sophia Feldman, bringing you highlights of politics for the week. Biden has started to remove U.S. troops from Afghanistan. All military personnel should be removed by September 11th, 2021. U.S. troops have been there for 20 years since the terrorist attack on our nation. After being the only country to formally pull out of the Paris Climate Accords in 2017, the United States has officially rejoined under Biden's term. The Supreme Court is dealing with the case phrased, "Mean Girls Meet First Amendment." When a 14-year-old cheerleader in high school did not make varsity cheer or softball and cursed it out on Snapchat, her school suspended her, but it was repealed in a local court. The case has made it all the way up to the Supreme Court because there are no laws or rules to determine when it's okay to punish a student for their speech. Due to how Gavin Newsom handled COVID restrictions in California, he has gotten some hate. Enough Californians have signed a petition to recall Newsom. Everyone who signed has 30 days to withdraw their names from the list. If enough people keep their signatures, then a ballot will have two options, an option to keep him and an option to replace him. Thank you for tuning in to this week's Political Corner. We'll be back with more news next week.
For the past year, the News Minute team has been scouring the internet to bring you the week's news. Unfortunately, there has been a lot of shootings to cover, and things don't seem to be slowing down. Just as we were ready to air an editorial segment discussing gun control last week, which we know is a tough topic to talk about, things hit close to home and we paused for the week. The following segment is an opinion piece for our news team, and the information raises awareness of serious issues. Stay safe, Tiger Cubs, and I'll see you next week.
Hello, welcome to this week's News Minute. In response to the many shootings that we have covered, we decided that an exploration of gun control would raise awareness on this issue. Gun control from the start was a very controversial topic. Although the Second Amendment gives citizens the right to bear arms in order to create a well-regulated militia, many do not exercise their rights without harming others. Take, for example, the Columbus area strip mall shooting. This shooting would mark the 148th mass shooting in America this year. According to the Gun Violence Archive, a nonprofit organization that tracks gun violence across the nation, there are almost 10 mass shootings per week in America. A mass shooting in this case would be a shooting in which 4 or more people were injured or killed. Gun control continues to be loosely managed. Take this case for example. The Indianapolis FedEx mass shooting on April 15th, where 8 people were killed. The suspect had been previously barred from buying guns, yet he legally bought 2 assault rifles. In most of these mass shootings, we see a running theme of poor gun control, which results in civilian deaths and injuries. More than 13 states are constitutional carry states. This means that all citizens over 21 can open or concealed carry handguns without license, background checks, or training. The Supreme Court has recently taken up a gun rights case, arguing whether or not to uphold New York's strict gun laws, banning the carry of handguns outside of one's home. You might be asking yourself, why is it so easy to purchase a gun in America? That's because of the Second Amendment and the National Rifle Association, NRA for short. Many laws on gun control have been heavily influenced by its lobbying. Examples of this are the Firearm Owners Protection Act, which lessens restrictions on gun control, and the Dickey Amendment, which prevents the CDC from using federal funds to advocate for gun control. However, the Biden administration has started taking steps to tighten gun control. Background checks would be expanded and required in any purchase of guns. There would also be a banning for ghost guns, guns which are guns assembled by the buyer that become untraceable. Although this may not prevent all mass shootings, it is a step forward for the country. Before we end this segment, we would like to mention the shooting that took place in Los Angeles last Tuesday. South Pasadena father of two, Ming Chu, was one of the victims of this shooting spree that killed 2 people. He was working as an Uber driver to provide for his family that morning. The shooting was an act of violence that hit especially close for many in our community,